Okay, Panasonic UB9000 /820. Is there any tools and things that we have to better our black levels? So let's check this out. This is Spears and Munsell test disc. Just checking out a few scenes here, and I'll show you some of the settings that you can do with this player. Okay, so just fast forwarding. This is this is like the scene I use to check for crushing of whites and things like that in these clouds. So it's a really good. It's just good to see. There's a lot of snow scenes on this disc that are also extremely good for this. So, okay. Alright, so on the remote, on the Panasonic UB9000, not too sure about the 820, how you would get here. Does the 820 have a HDR setting option? If it doesn't, you can still get there, so don't worry about that. But you basically press this button, and you're greeted with a new menu. So, okay, that would have been the manual way. Okay. So after setting, after HDR setting, the setting that you have made, dynamic range adjustment, will be cancelled. So whatever settings you've made already with this setting will essentially be reset. Not a big deal, but I just wanted for you guys to see this, because you can cancel this message so it never shows again, but I wanted you to see what it is. Do you wish to proceed? And again, you can turn this message off if you want. I chose to keep it on. And you have 4 settings here. You have these 4 settings. Standard is obviously the accurate mode, or the mode that applies nothing going forward or down from black level to the whites. Most circumstances, this is really what you should need. You shouldn't need anything else. But our displays, like even mine, the LG C9, it's not perfect, right? And just talking about OLEDs, OLED displays as well, is I'll use the term gamma, but it's you know, for HDR, so you just generally know what it means. Its gamma tracking is decent, essentially all the way down until it gets right into black. And OLEDs tend to, if anything, crush black, right? Especially like on TVs like the C9. Before they got into black level, like black level control, there's a new option on the CX and above which allows you to address this. Luckily though, on this player we have this option. So standard, natural environment, that was the 3rd, bright. Okay. If you can see what this is you can't, I mean, now we're blown out, right? What is this doing? Well, actually, let's continue for a bit. Okay, so that's the settings that they're predetermined, you know, they're predetermined settings, how this system works. But in Optimum HDR adjustment, we can actually adjust it ourselves. So their highest setting, number 4, was on it's on +11. That's what it was left on. Their 3rd setting was on +8. The 2nd setting is +4. And then obviously the default one is 0, right? So what is this dynamic range adjustment actually doing? because I didn't really understand it until I really looked at it on the Spears and Munson test disk. What this is doing is, imagine you have a 1000 nit window, right? And your TV was trying to track 1000 nits, but your TV wasn't good enough. It only made it up to 800 nits, and the blacks crushed, so it went past this as well. What this dynamic range adjustment is doing is essentially pushing up the values of everything, apart from zero black. Zero black is not touched with this setting at all. This is why it's actually really nice. So if my TV is calibrated, and I talked to the calibrator about this as well, and we looked at the graphs and everything like that, and we said you cannot do anything about this on a C9. With just at the end it starts to crush black. What this does is pushes up that range further, so instead of crushing that black, you can escape that part of the black earlier. I'm trying to use words that really people understand here, and keep this simple. Essentially, it's pushing up the entire scale, the entire range of everything. Why this is important is it depends on how you look at displays and where you want to go with the quality adjustments here. So the reason I've actually chose a light scene to see this is for this reason. Is if you push this too high, you're pushing your white, your whites are going too high. It's going past what the TV can display, right? The C9 gets up to about 800 nits, and then everything after 800 nits is essentially white is all the same. So again, the reason I'm using this is I want to see what will I accept on this clipping, these clouds, me losing detail. I've watched this in Dolby Vision and I've watched this in HDR10. To get this absolutely perfect, I think I said on my first video on the Panasonic UB9000 that it was probably more like -1, right? To actually match the brightness itself, not so much the clipping, just the brightness of Dolby Vision compared to HDR10. However, now knowing what this does is, if you pull this down to -1 down here, you're also pulling down your black level, which on an OLED could be risky. You don't want too much black and you just can't see any detail whatsoever. So I was playing around with this, and I've used Heat 4K, which a lot of people have complained about, that it's either dim or dark and things like that. On a calibrated display, that movie to me looks completely fine. Sure, it does have the life pulled out of it with color and things like that, but that kind of steel look and colors and things just pulled out of it, I thought looked good on a calibrated display. I didn't feel as though I had to adjust black levels or anything like that, so to me that was fine. It's just Wakanda Forever, right? Where's the brightness on the disc? And it's revealing some of the issues as well with your display. Sure, I don't think it's graded well at all. I don't think things should be that dark. But is your display perfect in the first place? If it's 2019 and below on an OLED, chances are it isn't. It needs some assistance in that early black level part. You don't want to crush too much there, but you want to keep that black that the OLEDs can provide. So yeah, I was playing around with this. I got a second pair of eyes as well. I got my brother to come in on this scene and on Heat to just get an idea of where we're at and how far you can go with this. I was settling around 2 and around 3 because, and this is interesting, that is about as far clipped as I wanted to go, right? Around 2 or 3. Interestingly enough, but when I put on heat as well, it's one of the dark scenes is when they the first like engagement, I guess you could say, with the law that they have, and they take some bail bonds, I think, and they blow the truck upside down and everything like that. When they go to investigate the scene, it's at night, right? There's some really good shots here when the bodies are on the floor, and you can see the truck and the amount of black level detail within that, right? When this was on 0, it wasn't crushed. That's not, you could still see film black. It wasn't crushed at all. It wasn't black like OLED black. It wasn't that black. So you could still see it. But when dynamic range adjustment was 2 to 3, 4 was okay, because you have the settings where they've made them, so you have 4, 8, and 11. You could stick to that and just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to stick to the first setting. It looks good. That is completely fine. This just allows you to fine tune this. And on a calibrated C9, 3 was just right. It just picked up that black level detail perfectly, but we didn't crush too hard yet. Now, if you said to me, well, if I had to sacrifice one versus the other, at this point, I would probably say, look, if the cloud's crushed here, it's not such an eyesore. When you've never seen this before, right? This is the first time you're seeing this. You're seeing clouds in the sky, blah blah blah. You don't really know what it looks like on a reference monitor, right? These being completely, I wouldn't say completely crushed, I'm just saying slightly crushed, versus having much better black level detail, and you're not having those issues with your eyes, I think is a better trade. Especially with TV shows and movies, a lot of the times lately just being graded too dark. So for me on a C9, it was 2 to 3. So I'm here as well, just playing with what looks correct. In HDR, I didn't find that the gamma setting here actually did anything like what this is doing. So whether the gamma setting itself, gamma is just for HDR. I mean, sorry. Gamma typically is just for SDR. It isn't for this. So these other settings, I personally would not touch. Would not touch them at all. One reason why you don't want to touch brightness is the black floor. You cannot push the black floor up, because now blacks never look black. So you want blacks to always look black. That's it. Most TVs, when they're coming from the factory, typically 50 is whatever typically what their setting is. I have seen sometimes where they actually put the brightness to 100, and that's then their default. That's fine, whatever. It doesn't matter how the companies do it and manufacturers do this. Typically, brightness is always best left as is, because you want black to be black. So that's really that. And again, these I didn't find any use for any of these. So all right, let's continue for a little bit. So actually, one sec. So let's keep going. Okay. Now, if you on a UB9000 and a A20, if you have this selected, this is kind of like the default one, I guess you could say. This turns off HDR adjustments. It turns off all of this is now turned off. So HDR optimizer, everything is off with this. It doesn't matter if you have your settings set to OLED or anything like that. You are just getting a raw feed of what is on the disc. Now, the purist in me wants to do this. I want to do this. I want whatever is on the disc for me to see. But you know, our displays are not absolutely perfect, and this is why this adjustment is actually really nice. So okay, next. Okay, so also when we get into Dolby Vision, that previous menu is completely turned off. So yeah, you're essentially locked out when you're in Dolby Vision mode. So but so that's the I mean, what you could do there is you could turn off Dolby Vision. Some people do. Some people turn off Dolby Vision. Obviously, if you have a projector, you know, and things like that, you'd do that anyway. But you could turn Dolby Vision off if you were even on Dolby Vision disc, right? You were still experiencing this issues of like, look, it just looks too dark. There's just something wrong here. You could try turning off Dolby Vision, and then you gain access to that control screen, and you can start adjusting things that way. However, there are settings on the TV that you can also adjust. Now, on an LG C9, Cinema is night mode, right? It's the accurate mode. It was the most accurate mode that we measured when we got our TV calibrated. Just wanted to show you some of the settings. Now, dynamic tone mapping, do I show it? Okay. What dynamic tone mapping does actually well is the whites. It actually does whites really well, so it does bring them into balance. The issue with dynamic tone mapping though is some scenes may actually look too dark, and then others look completely fine. So I am hesitant when using this for, and again, we're talking about just accuracy here, is do I really want to use this and destroy the integrity of the image entirely? It can be good. There's situations where it actually, in some shots, actually looks much better. This specifically, whenever there's white snow, dynamic tone mapping on the TV makes it look better. There's a butterfly scene as well on this TV. It just looks much better with dynamic tone mapping turned on. How much this affects black level though, to be honest, I haven't really looked into. I really haven't looked into it. Because again, I'm a purist at heart, and you shouldn't need things like this. So I've had limited experience with this, but yeah, it really can make the images pop better. It must be evaluating the nits on the disc to match what we think the white point is going to be. So your color gamut and your gamma and things like that, they get locked out. If whatever these may be, if they're locked out, if this said 2.4 gamma, it doesn't matter. The system, the TV, has locked those settings out anyway, so do not worry about this. Now, white balance, my white balance is locked out. Now, I believe the reason that is because ours is calibrated and the color mode is completely locked in. If you actually get white balance, and you can actually change the control, there's a setting in there where you can change warm 1, 2, 3, or maybe not 3, and then you can come down into the medium, cool, and all that type of stuff. Warm 2 is the most accurate on a C9. So just wanted to say that. And again, none of this is being turned on, like noise reduction, smooth gradation, debatable, but for me, again, I'm a purist. I want everything off. So now, just real quick, Real Cinema. While we're talking about settings and things like that, Real Cinema is 5.5 pull down. What does that actually mean? Movies are shot at 24 frames. 24 times 5 is 120. The refresh rate on an OLED is 120 Hertz. This matches the frame rate. Essentially, you're mirroring your frame 1 is being shot probably 5 times, right? I believe that's what it is. But anyway, on projectors, I used to have this as well. It was 2.2 pull down, which was 48 frames. It makes 24 frame film content look, to me, normal, right? It looks natural. When you turn this off, that judder of the frames is just, I can't watch that. So definitely, in my opinion, you should have that on. So all the motion settings, though, other than that, are off, you know. Definitely off. So yeah, that is that's for HDR, but that's the night mode, right? But what you can do is you can put it in day mode. This is essentially now the day mode. Color temperature is the most accurate at W50. I would use this. If you didn't have a calibrated display. If you're already calibrated, then everything's taken care of already. You don't need to, mess around with this. So, but yeah, it's this mode is Cinema Home. Again, this is how I set mine up. So let's talk about this real quick. When you've got color gamma, I would always choose auto on this situation, because I've seen situations where even on our first calibration, we calibrated in wide or extended, don't know which one it was at the time, and we set it to auto and the results were actually much different to what the signal was coming in at. So I got the calibrator to come back, check this out, and he was like, yeah, this actually does make a difference. So I would always go to auto in this situation, just depending on the content that you play, to make sure the TV is doing the correct thing. Now, I don't go into SDR on this because typically you don't have issues with SDR black levels. If you are, however, you're going to have some gamma settings here. The most accurate gamma is BT1886. That's the most accurate SDR gamma that you can set for this TV, and well, for all TVs. That's what it should be set to. If you want to play with that, you can, but again, the reason, if you're having black level issues and things can't display well, the day modes, the reason why they are better for non-calibrated displays, in my opinion, the reason they're better is because their gamma, look, you've got a gamma curve that's going like this, right? But it allows the gamma to raise, the black levels to raise earlier. Now you are going to have a brighter image, no doubt, because you're above the gamma curve, right? But you come out of black faster with this mode. And that is the whole point here, is especially on, like, say, a C9 where we don't have, in just before this color mode, in the CX you have black level control. I think it's called that, black level control. They added it to the C9. Unfortunately, it's just for gaming, so we can't have access to it. Me and the calibrator tried a few things, like trying to trick the software into thinking that it was a C10 and then trying to calibrate that way. It wouldn't have it, it wouldn't do it, so we couldn't use it. So on a C10 and above, on the OLED side of things, 2020 and above models, you might be able to get away with using the night mode, the most accurate mode. You might not even need to mess with the settings on the player at all. You could just turn that up until you knew, excuse me, that the setting was either good, or you were measuring it, or you had a test disk. You could actually see what was going on. That should be able to fix it just there. So this is really just a fix for anyone that doesn't have that level of control. Same settings, everything is off apart from Real Cinema, which is 5.5 pull down. So yeah, that's that. And so yeah, this is Cinema Home is a day mode, and again, you're raising the gamma early, so you're hopefully escaping these issues of if there's any black crush and things like that. One other tip I would give you, if you have a TV that has not been calibrated, is making sure you have all the firmware updates for the TV. Then what I would do after that is completely default the TV back to factory default settings. There's going to be maybe in general on this TV, and it says reset all of your settings. Now this literally resets everything. You have to start completely over again. It will completely reboot. It will erase all of your user settings and anything like that. The reason this is useful is I've seen this personally, where after getting a firmware update, then resetting the TV before I had this calibrated, that my black levels were much better than before. So sometimes when you get firmware updates, they're not applying to the picture modes that have been saved in user. And with an LG, I kind of knew better, so I made sure I reset my TV to default. And like before I got my TV calibrated, I made sure I got all the firmware updates. I told my calibrator that I was resetting the TV, everything to default before he came, so it adopted all of the new color modes if any were being hidden in user modes and things like that. So yeah, I think that is definitely a good strategy for people. Make sure you have all the firmware updates, reset everything, then go ahead and start applying some changes, and you might see some better black detail there as well. So yeah, day modes for non-calibrated displays I really do think are better. If you think you can accept the non-day mode and you're not having any black level detail issues, or there's no crush, sure, go ahead. In a non-calibrated display, I actually found that the day mode or Cinema Home was better in this situation. On OLEDs, they've got the backlight issue, automatic dimming and things like that. I found that it kicked in less when I was in the day mode. Whether that's because the average light level has been pushed up, not really too sure. But again, I just had a much better experience here. So when you get your TV calibrated, the backlight limiter will be turned off. So it just makes things a lot easier. I can't stand the backlight limiter coming in and out. That's probably the worst thing about an OLED, personally. I don't like that. Okay, so what do we have now? Let's go. This should be Dolby Vision. I just wanted to show you what was happening in Dolby Vision. Right. So we're locked out, right? None of these options are available to us in Dolby Vision. So again, this is why it could be beneficial in some cases to turn Dolby Vision off to gain access to these. You don't get as good gradients, you don't get as smooth bit depth. You do have that to worry about. You've really got to judge for yourself whether this is a good thing. I mean, I've heard people turning off their displays, for streamers, turning off Dolby Vision, turning off HDR, because SDR just straight up looks better. in the worst case scenario, you could do that. This player allows you to do that. You can turn off HDR10, you can turn off all the HDR and just play it in SDR if you really wanted to. If your TV just was not, just wasn't cutting it, right? But SDR did look good. You know, you could do that. So, okay. So I just went over the Dolby Vision settings here. This is standard stuff. Dynamic range contrast, I wouldn't mess with this. Just wouldn't mess with any of this super resolute, none of it. You don't need it. Real cinema, it's all on, you know, that's it again. So let's keep going. But again, you can do the same with Dolby Vision here, because if you're like, look, I want Dolby, right? But it's on some discs it still looks too dark, and there's no workaround here apart from me jacking up the brightness, which again you're ruining your black floor. You can't do that. However, again, even in Dolby Vision here, Cinema Home, you have the benefits of being in a day mode, which means you are raising your gamma curve, you could say, to early. It's not how it was graded, but the point is here is to fix any black level detail issues you have with your display. And a day mode, it's still relatively accurate. Apart from raising early, it's still relatively accurate compared to the night mode. So I also liked Dolby Vision day mode as well. Okay, I also liked that because again we didn't have the black level, the backlight issues and stuff like that. So yeah, so there's some fixes or things to think about. So just going over this again is the Panasonic UB9000. You can adjust that dynamic range adjustment, but again it's picking up the entire image. So when you go +1, the entire image goes +1, including the whites, the blacks, everything apart from 0 black. So that's actually good. You still retain that black. So you can play around with this. My display again is anywhere from 2 to 4, you could say. 3 I would say is perfect. But yeah, check it out. If you've got a TV that was released before mine, the 2018s, the older ones, the 2016s, I don't know if they need more help than a C9, or if the pixels and the chips and things like that, they're all basically the same and they all have roughly the same issues. If that's the case, then 3 should work on all of those displays as well. If you've got an LCD, I don't really know too much about LCDs anymore, because I don't buy LCDs anymore and things like that. This in theory should work for that as well. If you've got any black crushing of detail and things like that, it would work there. Now the only reason why this doing this on just the player could potentially be an issue is, let's say you were a streamer as well, you watched a lot of streams and they had the black level issues. Well, in this situation now you have to do it in the day mode settings on the TV. Again, I wouldn't go don't adjust this and things like that. You are limited here in what you can do. I wouldn't, I'm not going into vivid mode, and things like that. I still want to maintain a relatively high level of accuracy here, and you don't lose a lot by going into the day modes. So I think that's about it, and I do hope this helps with any black detail issues you're having. Tell me in the comments and stuff, and just leave me a message or whatever if it did help. If you have this player and you didn't really know what this setting was, and if you find a setting that works, let me know, please. If you have any tips for others as well, including myself, what has helped you with gaining better black levels outside of calibration, right? Someone comes to your house, they calibrate the display, now it should look perfect, right? We have a lot more control, things look balanced. Outside of that, is there any tips that you have that you can provide? And yeah, I think that's it. Hope it helped. Again, the Panasonic UB9000 is here to save the day. It really, really does help having this control. Considering you don't have a CX, a 2020 OLED and above, you know, it's really, really nice. So, yep, cool. Thanks for watching, and yeah, have a good day. Bye.